38 ocean fact that will blow you out of the water. You probably know that the majority of our planet's surface is covered by water bodies. Specifically, it's a hair shy of 71%. What you might not have heard though is that sea waves can move at hundreds of miles per hour, or that the ocean depths are home to millions of tons of gold, or that scientists have more detailed, more extensive map of Mars than they do our own ocean. Yes, as deep as our planet ocean or physically, they are deeper still. When it comes to mystery and fascination, the following little known fact about the ocean are sure to blow you out of the water. Thanks to the ocean, most of our planet is dark. Oceans have an average depth of 12,100 feet, and because light waves can only penetrate 330 feet of water, everything below the point is dark. Seeing as water make up most of the planet, this means that most of Earth exists in absolute darkness all the time. The loudest ocean sound came from an ice quake. In 1997, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration captured one of the loudest sound ever recorded, which they named the bloop. The sound was loud enough to be picked up by sensors over 3,000 miles away. Originally, researchers noted that the nature of the sound made it seem like it came from an animal, although no one animal exists that is large enough to make that sound. After 15 years, the NOAA concluded that the noise came from an ice quake, which is when seismic activities cause a break in frozen ground. However, many people still question this conclusion, and the bloop is the source of many conspiracy theories to this day. The ocean's canyons make the Grand Canyon seem small. Not to take anything away from the gorgeous Grand Canyon on Earth, but the Zemsung Canyon, located in Bering Sea, has a vertical relief of 8,520 feet, almost 2,500 feet deeper than the Grand Canyon. The biggest ocean waves are beneath its surface. The biggest ocean waves are not the ones that you can see from the shoreline. As physical oceanographer told Deep Sea News, the largest wave that occur in the ocean are called internal waves, which take place between two fluids with two different densities. As these internal waves travel for thousands of miles, no less they can grow to be 650 feet tall. Water at the body of the ocean is incredibly hot. In these deepest parts of the ocean, the water temperature may only be 2 degrees to 4 degrees Celsius, with the exception of water coming out of hydrothermal vents in the seafloor. The water released from these vents can be up to 400 degrees Celsius, that is 750 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the intense pressure at these depths, the same pressure that would crush you, that keeps the water from boiling. The ocean is home to nearly 95% of all life. With no much going on well below the surface, it's easy to forget that the oceans are teeming with life. In fact, 91% of life is aquatic. According to the USA Science and Engineering Festival, that means those of us who live on land are part of a very, very small minority. Coral produces its own sunscreen. Too much sunlight can damage the algae that live inside coral in shallow water. To protect the algae, which are main source of sustenance for the coral florets, this create protein that act as a sort of sunscreen for the algae. There is enough gold in the ocean for each of us to have 9 pounds of it. There is around 20 million tons of gold dispersed throughout the ocean. It is, however, diluted pretty much to the pulp. Its concentration is only a few parts per trillion, according to the National Ocean Service. The ocean floor also has undissolved gold embedded in it, but it's not cost effective to mine it. However, if the ocean gold were equally distributed among every person on earth, we had each received 9 pounds of it. There is an ice sheet larger than the continental United States. Just two vestiges of ice remain from our planet's last ice age: the Greenland ice sheet and the Antarctic ice sheet. The latter of the two is staggering in size, clocking in at 5.4 million square miles. According to the National Snow and Ice Data Center, it's roughly the size of continental United States and the Mexico combined. Sharks have their own underwater cafe. It turned out humans aren't the only creature in need of winter vacation. In 2002, scientists discovered an area in the remote part of the Pacific Ocean pathway between Baja California and Hawaii where typically coastal great white shark will migrate to into the winter. The scientists named the spot the White Shark Cafe, and some sharks hang around the area for months before heeling back to the coast for warmer weather. The planet's longest mountain range is underwater and is 10 times longer than the Andes. The longest mountain range above water is the Andes, which is about 4,300 miles long. The actual longest mountain range on Earth, however, is the underwater mid-oceanic ridge, which snakes between all continents and clocks it around 40,390 miles long. The Pacific Ocean is wider than the Moon. As its widest point from Indonesia all the way to Colombia, the Pacific Ocean is wider than the Moon by quite a lot. This expanse of ocean is 12,300 miles across, which is more than 5 times the diameter of the Moon. One iceberg could supply 1 million people with drinking water for 5 years. A large iceberg from Antarctica contained more than 20 billion gallons of water, which could conceivably supply 1 million people with drinking water for 5 years. But this piece of information isn't just a great way to illustrate how massive these icebergs are. A company in the United Arab Emirates is actually planning to being towing icebergs from Antarctica to the coast for exactly this reason. The country receives an average just 4 inches of rainfall each year and is at risk of serious drought in the next 25 years, but may be able to solve the problem with this iceberg water solution. Next, pressure at the bottom of the ocean would crush you like an ant. The Mariana Trench, that is 35,802 feet below the surface, which include the deepest point on the planet, the water pressure is 8 tons per square inch. If you made your way down there, it had feel like you were holding up nearly 50 jumbo jets. The next one is the planet's biggest waterfall is in the ocean. The tallest waterfall you are going to see on land is Angel Falls in Venezuela, which has a drop over 3,200 feet. But that's nothing compared to the Denmark Strait Contract, which is an underwater waterfall in between Greenland and Iceland formed by the temperature difference in the water on either side of the strait. When the cold water from the east hits the warmer water from the west, it flows underneath the warm water with a drop of 11,500 feet. According to the National Ocean Service, the flow rate of the waterfall is more than 123 million cubic feet per second, which is 50,000 times that of Niagara Falls. The next one, more people have been to the moon than a Mariana Trench. In human history, 1 dozen people have set foot on the moon, but just 3 people have managed to make it on a Mariana Trench because of the extreme conditions there. One of those people, director James Cameron, who wrote about the dive for the magazine National Geographic. The next one, half of the United States exists below the ocean. According to the CBS News, more than half of the United States exists underwater. Have you asked? Simple, the borders of our country don't stop where the land ends. They expand 200 nautical miles away from shore. Coming up to the next one, oceans have lakes and rivers too. The ocean is like an entirely separate world. There are trenches, mountains, volcanoes, and lakes and rivers. As seawater makes its way through layers of salt, it forms like depression on the ocean floor because the water around these depressions contain more salt than normal seawater. It's denser and sinks into the depression, creating little briny pools. These are a lot like lakes we know in that they have shorelines, and some of them even have waves. The Mediterranean used to be dry. Yes, the Mediterranean used to be dry basin until some 5 million years ago during the Zanclean flood, in which water from the Atlantic poured through the Strait of Gibraltar and filled the basin. Theories about how this happened but one catastrophic interpretation has the basin filling upon only 2 years, thanks to the massive torrent of water. Sea ice is drinkable. You can't drink seawater, but you can drink sea ice. However, you won't want to drink fresh sea ice, which still has little pockets of brine trapped in between ice crystal. As the ice ages, the brine drains out and the ice becomes fresh enough that according to NSIDC it can be melted and consumed. There is an internet connection in the ocean. Surprising, right? For the past few decades, according to Newsweek, submarine cable buried deep within the ocean have carried more than 99% of intercontinental data traffic, meaning that overseas communication is made possible by ocean-based cable. The next interesting one, most of Earth's volcanic activity happens in the ocean. When it comes to volcanic activity, the ocean have the most going on by wide margin. In fact, 90% of all the volcanic activity on the planet happens in the ocean. And the largest known concentration of active volcanoes is in the South Pacific. It's an area no bigger than the size of New York, but it contains a whopping 1,133 volcanoes. Next, tsunamis move at 500 miles per hour. Tsunamis are triggered by seismic events and can, according to the Natural History Museum of Utah, move across the ocean at speeds of 500 miles per hour when the ocean depth is 3.7 miles. These waves are usually unnoticed as they are only a few inches above the surface, and as the waves move towards the land and the depth shrink, they pick up water and increase in above surface size, but thankfully slow down. The next one. The United States lost a hydrogen bomb in the ocean. What? Every year, shipping containers get lost in the ocean, and oil spills are unfortunately common. But in 1966, the United States managed to lose a hydrogen bomb at sea. Luckily, according to history, it was eventually found with the help of Spanish fishermen. The world's largest living structure is in the ocean. The world's largest living structure isn't an enormous corpse of trees or even a massive fungus. It's the Great Barrier Reef off the coastal of Australia. The reef spread out over an year of what? 133,000 square miles and is so huge it can actually be seen from outer space. From the Titanic to Christopher Columbus Santa Maria, the oceans are home to around 3 million shipwrecks, according to the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. The ocean has more artifacts than the world's museum combined. Thanks to these millions of shipwrecks, the ocean houses countless treasure and artifacts. National Geographic estimates that there are more treasures at the bottom of the ocean than in all the world's museums combined. Upcoming next, if all the ice melted, the sea level would rise 26 stories. According to the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, if all the glaciers and sheets of Arctic sea ice melt at the same time, the sea level would rise an estimated 262 feet, which is about the height of 26-story building, just a bit shorter than the Statue of Liberty. Shocking and surprising. Next one, the ocean is a magnet for heat. The ocean is the largest solar energy collector on Earth. According to NOAA, the proliferation of greenhouse gases prevent heat from escaping our planet's atmosphere. And all that energy has to go somewhere. Unfortunately, it goes straight into the ocean. As a result, ocean temperatures have rapidly risen over the past few decades. And the next one, the ocean is our greatest source of oxygen. Most of the oxygen in our atmosphere comes from tiny marine plants in the ocean, specifically phytoplankton, kelp, algal plankton. Scientists estimate they are responsible for around 70% of the atmosphere oxygen, according to National Geographic. We have better maps of Mars than the ocean. Less than 5% of the ocean has been explored, according to National Ocean Service. In fact, we have better maps of Mars than the ocean, despite the fact that it is nearly 50 million miles away. More than 90% of the planet's life forms are undiscovered and underwater because precious little of the ocean has been explored. It is currently estimated that 91% of the species that exist under the sea have yet to be discovered. according to a 2011 study published in PLS Biology. The next one, nearly 100% of Earth living space is in the ocean. The ocean make up almost all of the living space on Earth. This makes the world's ocean the largest space in the known for universe inhabited by living organisms. The part of the ocean that the furthest from land is named after a classic novel. Found in the Pacific Ocean, Point Nemo is the most remote spot in another of world's ocean. According to the NOAA, it's about 1670 miles from land, and it's aptly named after the character in Jules' famous book, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The proteins that help Arctic fish live in super cold temperature may change how our food is stored. As biologist Peter to NPR in 2013, organisms that live in the water at each pole have antifreeze proteins in their bodies that keep ice crystal from forming on them and harming them. Scientists are trying to figure out how this protein can be applied to more human problems, like keeping your pint of cherry gaja from getting freezer burned. By 2050, the plastic in the ocean will overweight the fish. In addition to climate change, pollution is also rapidly changing our world's ocean. Conservation International say that humanity dump 8 million metric tons of plastic into them every year. That means that in a little less than 30 years, there will be more tons of plastic in the ocean than there of fish. I hope this fact somewhat interesting for you. If you like this information, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Always stay connected with Harsni's view to explore many videos. See you in the next video. Bye bye.